Hello everybody and welcome to my YouTube channel, Class is My Way, and we are going to move on to just a one piece of the claw, the actual claw itself as a singular piece. We still want this to be mobile, to bend with your finger, and the thumb is actually a really good candidate for making a whole finger ring. The only thing is though to keep in mind, if you want to be able to wear, or your purchaser wants to be able to wear a thumb ring, typically just the end, the claw part, which would be this part here, is better to do by itself because holding a pencil or anything to do with this part of the hand, you still want that to be fairly mobile and moderately functionable. Those of us that have had acrylic nails or grow our nails out long know that, we can kind of get around a longer fingernail, essentially what it is. But not being able to feel and use this part of our hand to full effect is going to cause some problems for most people. So I'm opting to go for just the claw here. Plus it'll make a nice contrast with this ring being a whole finger ring. It's going here. And then we have this guy who's only a partial, but he's like way longer. It kind of gives you a bit of a stare effect in a way. And because the thumb is so much wider, it's going to kind of give that optical illusion of this being a really big piece. And you can make it really big, but it is going to be wider than all your other pieces just because your thumb, pretty much most cases, is wider than all of your other fingers. So you're going to have a much broader piece than the rest of your rings. So optically, it just looks nicer, or it's going to help feel more balanced overall. So I got this thing pre-made. It's just 3 pieces of wire, curled the ends, nothing special. Silver coated copper wire weave all the way through it, and then just shaping it to the finger itself. It's super simple. If you don't know how to do any of this, I do have a video that is beginner rings. I would recommend going and checking it out, so that way we're not covering old ground here. So obviously this is the 7th video, so we're going to start off with this copper, which is 16 gauge for our pretty much our base wire, and to build our structure off of. I'm just straightening out as I go. That ought to be enough. I might end up with quite a bit extra, but that's all right. The extra always gets turned into decorative elements one way or another, be it I put it in a melting pot and it turns into something else. It will be used. Now, I'm just basically going to try to find the middle here. Obviously, found it. All right. And get one of my bench blocks out and a hammer. I'm going to grab my square nose pliers here, and I'm going to go ahead and do some of the work for the hammer already and go ahead and squish this down to be nice and flat. You may not want to be in here, Sam. Going to be a lot of loud noises. Now I got that squished where I can't see any light in between those two, and that's pretty much what I want. And I'm going to go at it the same way I did for the end of this one, the end of this one, and several other places. Keep in mind, you don't want to just haul off hitting this thing. There will be bits of copper coming out. Basically, all that we're doing is trying to change the general shape of this, so that way it doesn't look like it was all entirely made out of rounded copper. We are trying to form it just a little bit, so that way, almost like 2 pieces of square copper were put together and soldered together without soldering. And it is going to work harden it, so we're going to have to keep that in mind as we're weaving and continuing. So I'm going to start off like this side, tapping away at that, and then I will slowly just keep rolling it underneath the hammer. And there are going to be a lot of chances where you're going to have to take square nose and hold it, so that way he won't shimmy and work around on you in your fingers, because your fingers will be very unlikely to keep a good hold on it like you're going to need to. So I will mute the hammering part of this, so that way I don't drive all of you absolutely insane. So see you soon. All right, good deal. So from here, this is the end of the claw. I'm going to open this up a little bit. Now I don't want to get too wild with opening this guy up because this end is work hardened, and because of the way we've moved the metal around, there's a very good chance that you will end up just snapping it open like a wishbone. And I'm just straightening out some of this wire a little bit so that way it's not too kinky. Overall looks good. I'm going to bend the ends outwards so that way they don't get in my way when I'm trying to do weaving through. All right, now I like to wear the ring piece that I intend for the overall piece. A large part of that is so that way I can plan how wide I do need to make the piece. And now how long do I want to go? If I make it too short because of how wide the opening is, then you will be able to see my thumb through it, and I don't think that's going to be a great look, because then even though it may fit, it's going to look like it belongs on the finger of somebody who has a much smaller thumb. So probably about right in there is what I think. Now I have my Sharpie around. Now I know where it is that I'm roughly planning to put the whole thing. And overall, when I put it where it needs to be, it ends up widening itself, so I'm going to go ahead and widen it a bit. That'll work just fine. Go ahead and pre-plan some things. Double check. And the big thing, like I mentioned with the other ring that I showed you guys how to do, is double check, then go back and double check. You do remove one little thing, go back and double check and make sure it's going to work. Okay, so I have decided that how I've connected this ring over to this part, even though it's going to be a standalone piece by itself, I really like how that looks. So I'm going to go ahead and pre-make that. So it's going to start bending down right at those black spots. And since I bent this one, I want it to be even with each other, so regardless of where the black spots are. Eyeball it here, and yeah, that looks pretty even. Double check. Yep. And now, just roll them back. It went down quite a bit though. So roll it back right about here, around the smallest end of my pliers there. I'm going to go ahead and squish him closed just like I did to the end in the beginning, if it behaves. That's a whole other kettle of fish. Same spot. And if you're wondering how I know I'm rolling it in the same spot, I'm pretty much eyeballing it. And of course, because I squished it, that makes it longer because this side's going to have a gap where the other side didn't. But that'll get resolved. And even if it's just the slightest bit longer, I'm not going to lose sleep over it. And now, I'm just going to roll it forward. I'm going to go up to right where the shaft of the claw, right where it meets, where this part's going straight up. That's where I'm going to start rolling him. And we don't do that. And once I get to where, an angle about like that, I get that's almost seems like a 45-degree angle. But it doesn't matter too much. You just want it to roll down a little bit further than, again, where the shaft of the claw is. You want it to just be further down than that. It's just more of an aesthetics look than anything. So I'm going to go down a little bit more. And I'm going to go ahead and grab hold of this guy and go ahead and just maybe wrap him up that way. Okay. And this makes a great little access point, one, to put two pieces together if you decide that you would rather make a whole thumb ring. It looks a little nicer than some of my other connections, so I feel that that one's pretty appropriate myself. I kind of like the Art Nouveau style of it a little bit, because I'm a sucker for Art Nouveau. And grab hold of this guy. Yep. And roll. I want to make sure that these both feel like they are at the same overall length. This hoop's a little bit bigger, but that's okay. I think it'll all work out. I'll go ahead and play with this one a little bit. And I'm just going to make sure that everything's lined up, even from this point of view. This curves in just a little tiny bit, so I can give it a little squish, a little squish. Now, I'm thinking that maybe this claw should continue on with having a backbone like the other two pieces do. Pretty much every segment of both of these pieces have a backbone, so better do it. So I'm going to widen it just a little bit more than usual here, because I normally end up tightening and tightening a little bit whenever I start weaving. And I'm going to go ahead and find the end of my wire, maybe not. And this is a brass coated copper wire. There we go. It's basically antiqued, pre-antiqued already. And it's a finish where, like, there's multiple ways to tarnish brass and copper, but this isn't going to rub off as easily as a lot of those other finishes would. I'm just going to take this guy and go ahead and start weaving from the tip of the claw. Get that wire down in there nice and tight. And around one, under, and around the other side, long one over the top, which is the same weave I've used for both of these guys, both of these rings. So since it's all part of a whole unit, might as well go ahead and continue with the theme, because I do kind of plan for this to almost be a bit of a gauntlet when I'm done. And this guy's just marking the edge of my recording area here, as well as just being his beautiful self. And just make sure everything's down here nice and snug. Around the top, and then one around that side, long one around the back, and then around to the other side. Bring a long one around the front, and then wrap it around that side, a long one around the back, and there, and so on. I want to do this for a little bit because I am going to make what amounts to as a little like hammock area for when I put the backbone in. It has a place to kind of set itself, so that way it's not, you know, slipping this way and that way. But you don't want to go too far. So to keep myself from cutting a new piece of wire, I went through my little scrap heap and I found a piece that would work just fine for the backbone. It's a little short. It won't give me much for decorative elements, but that's all right, because our decorative elements, we can make them a variety of sizes. My decorative elements for these two rings have ranged from 16 to 20. Yeah, 20 gauge. 16 being the more my base wires and my structure, and the weaving wires, obviously, they're pretty small. I do believe, what are you? I have lost what gauge you are. I'm sure this is probably smaller than 20. It's probably 26. And my black wire is 30. Yep. That has been the kind of an accent color that I've used throughout the pieces. So that'll, by using the 16 gauge, that allows it to be a lot stronger versus this, what I'm going to say is probably 26 gauge wire. Allows it to be stronger, allows it, while I'm weaving, to not get pulled over one way or the other. It's just got a little bit more stability to it. Whereas with the 30, I could get away with probably using the 20. It's still going to do a lot of push me, pull you stuff. But it should be overall just fine. And by using the two different decorative elements, going with a couple of little bit of 16s here and there, and then going into the 20s, allows you to have just a variety, and this keeps you from ending up with this feeling of sameness. So I'm going to keep on trucking. I don't have enough yet for this to really hold on to my base wire. Let's see if I got any more. No. Still not really able to fit very far. So I put the ring where I want to pretty much sew it in. It's going to act like basically the back wire here on the structure. And I'm just on this piece, I had gone ahead with the brass colored copper wire and had wrapped all this, and then I put the ring in, and then I wrapped it. I think this method is going to be a little better. Again, this ring is my first prototype of it, and I think I've learned a few things in building it, and then in building the second one, that kind of help out with building this one. So I'm kind of taking a lot of what I like from the two and putting it together for this guy. So just wrapping it as far as I can wrap it. Now it is leaving some gaps. I'm not 100% happy about that, but I'll just go ahead and scooch them all down. Come up with the wire, and then go ahead and continue to wrap the blank spot there. So that way I only have one overlapping wire, and it's just right there in the back. Makes everything else look a little nicer and neater. And there we have it. Now, I gotta figure out how to go all the way over to this end, which that's not really hard, but I'm gonna come up. And just like all my my previous weaves throughout that I did, come up, connect to this guy, go around it, and there, snug, and then make it all the way over here, wrap around there. I'm going to go ahead and start pre-wrapping a little bit, make that nice and snug before I start wrapping the actual ring part itself into the whole mess. And I think that's probably about as far as I'm going to get. And maybe one more, while trying to remain gap free while I go. Not going to be successful. I'm going to have to still double back, but that's all right. Get this ring into place. And then just keeping it up nice and tight, holding it with my ring finger here in place. Now that I have at least one wire wrapped around it, he's going to slide a little less on me. And it's not even completely wrapped. Just, you'd be surprised how much that'll help. Slide these two together nice and tight. Come back up, around, and down. Make sure to lay all my wire one next to the other in nice, neat little rows. Because the thing to keep in mind, like I said, with the other ring is that we are adding wire to the inside of this, which is going to affect where maybe before it was nice and comfortable, the ring part, now that this wire is getting wrapped on the inside, it is going to affect how it wears. And you'd be surprised, sometimes a wire just getting laid slightly funny can go over a part of your finger that may be a little bit more sensitive than you realize, and then it's no longer very comfortable to wear, and that's not what we want. And we've gone down about as far as we can. Did a lot better with my gaps and such on this one. Let's just snug that up there. And all the children in my art room right now. Apparently I am the center of attention. All right. And there we have that. Now I'm going to go ahead and get my hammer back out, and I'm going to use the ball here to kind of shape the wires underneath, and I'm just running this over so that way it gives it more of a concave rather than it just running straight to the backbone and then straight to the base wire on the outside. This makes it just a little bit more concave, gets it a little more shapely, and you don't want to do too much to where you start, of course this part's practically inshapeable for that, but you don't want to do it too much. You don't want to press too hard. It doesn't take a lot of force to do this, but you also don't want to end up rubbing off your finish either. So let's take a look. Fairly happy with that. Now I am going to kind of pull downwards while keeping this part of the hammer underneath the ball of it, so that way I can just kind of shape it that way. Now I don't want to shape the top here very much, because then if I start pulling downwards or start pushing it in, it's going to change the shape of it and it won't cover over the thumb anymore. It'll kind of change that when I don't really want that. Okay, this tips a little too much, so I'll just straighten that out. A little squeeze and a little squeeze. Much better. Maybe just straighten you. A little straighter there. Yeah, that starts to feel a lot better. And it gives it a nicer shape along the sides to look at. Bad cat, one moment. I tell you what, fur kids. Now, let's see, where were we? Yeah, I wanted to go down just a little bit further and make this just a tiny bit tighter. And that pretty much ends that. Just gonna maneuver this, be a little flatter against the side of the ring there. Same with this guy. Now, I think what I want to do is take this guy undercover. So I'm going to basically run him up the middle here in the back. I want to try to keep him from moving inwards. There we go. So we have pretty much a majority of that staying on the outside of the ring. And I'm doing that with holding it over with my thumb and pulling it tight. Now, I mean, obviously, if something comes along and snags that, it will move. But we're going to tuck that guy in, so that way is minimizing the possibilities of that ever happening. All right. And now I have lots and lots of wire. And we'll go ahead and bring it over just this one time, because this is a little uneven as far as like this side's down a little bit further than this side. So if I bring this over, it helps even that out just a little bit, but a good chunk of that's going to get hidden anyway, so it's not a big deal of any sort. All right. Only problem with this is I don't have a small clear crystal to echo that guy. I do have one blue eye left, but do I want another eyeball in the piece? Because I don't want it to be completely like just laden with these eyeballs, you know, like overdoing it, like how I mentioned that in one of the other videos. I've always wanted one of these ring things, but they always are covered in skulls, and you know, to the point where skulls anymore are just so cliche. And I don't want this to feel overdone and cliche. But each piece could stand alone by itself. I think I will do it. And then I'll save one big amber eye for the hand cover piece, which will go around here, because this part does a lot of moving. It won't, you know, if we build something that went over this way, there's not going to be anything underneath it, and it's going to get hooked on things and so on. So it's better the part of the hand that doesn't do as much moving. I mean, it does moving here and it does moving here. Not much anywhere else. I think that'll be a better strategy. Or you could even just do it to where it's just covering this part coming around as a bracelet. And then, like I said, I have a special idea for this piece to hook it on, and even these two pieces, though they've not been necessarily made to hook onto the hand part, got a little surprise for that. And I'm sure probably you guys are all smart people. My surprise has probably already been figured out by now, I know. But let me have my fun. I like to pretend that I can be mysterious. So I'm going to cut myself some 20 gauge copper wire. This is going to be more of a decorative part to, whoop, where are you going? To hold that eye down. And I'm going to build it pretty much how I built this claw piece, so that way they can at least echo each other. They got the same eye on, and they're on the same part of the hand, and so on. So they pretty much really need to mimic each other. Now, how I had started the structure, I put 2 base wires for it, just like how we did with the backbone. Put them right down here, and then bend it, and now it's nice and fairly sturdy in there. And then, you know, we'll do all the sewing and whatnot to keep it permanently on, but it's pretty stable. Again, now that I've had more practice with how this is overall going to work, I can do the weave a lot better overall with it. You just probably ended on the inside. So actually, this middle piece was the backbone, and it just curved around, and then I made these two. I ended up weaving them tighter and tighter together until they pretty much shoved the backbone piece underneath, allowing them to pretty much take up the rest of pick up the mantle from there. Which we almost have enough there, but I think it's just long enough to get us the effect that we want. It'll be just a little bit shorter. It won't go as far around here, but that just means we'll end it a little bit sooner. Out of my way, guys. I'm going to hold this eyeball against this hook right here that I made, which makes it a lot easier to keep control of everything. I'm going to bring this wire around, so that way he's a little bit more usable and actually holding on to stuff. I'm going to cut another 16 gauge and slip him in. Now you do want to be careful. You don't want to like just jam this guy in there. You just want to work him in between everything. So I've pretty much got that all down, and if it looks like I was struggling there, I was, but you know, if you're using an eyeball, trust me, you're going to struggle too. It takes a lot of work, and don't get frustrated and just decide good enough's good enough, because you're not going to be happy with the end result. Sometimes things just take time, so take your time. If it's worth doing, it's worth doing right. All right, now I'm going to grab my black 30 gauge copper coated wire. It's coated with black, thus coated. And I'm going to go ahead and give myself a tail to grab a hold of here. And versus what I did last time, I'm just going to cut myself off a bit of black and just use it as I need it, and get more as I need it. And I'm going to start off, since this one here, it's the longest. So I'm going to start off wrapping it first, so that way it starts off being black all the way back where it first comes out of this piece. I want to do some quick adjusting, maybe, or maybe not. Actually, up in here is where I need to do the adjusting, so I won't worry about it. Just keep on going here. And then he's going to be jumpy on you because he's not anchored down to anything other than being inside of pretty much the rib bones here. That's the only thing holding on to him at the moment. So just very carefully. Now I think I am to the point where I want to start incorporating in the shorter spine here. I'll go around the short one, slide that wire back, come around to the longer piece, go around it, and I'm pretty much just picking up the exact same weave I did throughout this whole thing here. Now we're ready to add this guy back in. And now he's our third one. So we are literally all the way back to our last weave of go around the top, go around the side, go around the bottom, go around the side, go around the top, and continue. Which gets very difficult when the shorter one is going to be a hidden wire. I'm going to get this more out of my way here. When the shorter piece is going to be a wire that's on the inside, it's going to be up to you when you decide that, okay, I'm going to stop incorporating him and I'm just going to go between those two and fill in. And you'll know. Looking much better than my first attempt at this. So I'm going to go ahead and continue with this weave. I'm going to jump ahead, and I'm probably going to call it quits for tonight. You guys won't know, but it's like 1 o'clock here right now. So I will be right back. I've had a couple of ideas here. One of them is taking this and then using like the Art Nouveau and then following the shape of the wire that I have and then taking it across here. And then I could even sew along the side, which would, you know, bring the ring overall down around the thumb. But it's always best to look at the set. Matches better without. Or at least it will match better without. And if my pointer finger wasn't crooked. But overall, those two do feel like they are one and the same up to this point. So we won't do that. So I'll go ahead and cut it because I can't figure out any way to use these as a decorative element because they're going to end too shortly by the time I make them follow the ring and maybe even like come around. We can go ahead and give it a try just in case. It never hurts to be curious. I guess I could fill up this area here and then sew it down. The only thing is though, when you're going to do something like this and you have like a little tail end there, go ahead and pre-curl it because you're never going to, with the tips of your fingers, you're never going to get it to fit or do anything that you want. So go ahead and try to kind of pre-fit it to the space. And see, now I don't have any sharp ends poking out there. Whoop. That gap there. And then I can sew this more permanently down with this big old wire that's been plaguing me this whole time. Now I can also do the same with this guy, make him come around and tuck in underneath there, but I'm going to have a whole bunch of wire that needs this room, because just making this many passes, I wanted to make more passes, but I just couldn't find the space to go up and come back around and keep going, so that way they were all coming from the same spot back here and all flowing around like hair. So I think actually the better idea is going to be to, and I'm going to bend this over. Now I'm going to make it do a very sharp turn. And go ahead and pre-curl it. Curve, curl, what have you. I mean, it's not a complete curl, but close enough. I'm going to try to take this black weaving that I did, and I'm going to try pushing it downwards a little bit more off of that eye, so that way we can actually see that eye. Be careful if you do something like that, you could end up scraping off your black paint on your permanently coated coppered wire. My battery died on my camera, so I had a little bit of a snafu with this side, so I decided, since it was just being such a big pain in my butt, I would just go ahead and cut it off the same way I had with this ring and just pretty much make it the same. And I went ahead and let this be a more decorative element going that direction. Now from here, I'm going to guesstimate about there, and I can always cut off a little bit. And for this ring, I'm just going to go ahead and curl that end. And then I'm going to use my thumb, grabbing hold of the end here, just giving it a little bit of a curve. Being very loose with it, trying to control where it is bending. It needs to be a little tighter, though. Then, taking off in the other direction. Just slip it around the back. And because this is a lot longer, I could even go for another spiral around. Curl in the opposite direction. There we go. And now this guy can be sewn right down to the body. And I think I'm going to go ahead and cut some of that curl out, and then I'll just recurl it just a little tighter instead. And there we have that part. So it's looking like a bigger, longer version. Yes. I'm being yelled at. Oh, yes, you are. Well, Sammy yells at me. I'm going to now take 26 gauge, and this is going to end up being a part of sewing this guy down. You can sew him down with black wire too. That'll also, you can use this this black wrapped cord that we had already done and hide the fact that you even wrapped anything by wrapping it across this. You can still hide it and it be barely noticeable. I might approach this from the underneath side where you really can't see it. And again, I'm going to use 26 gauge wire. And I'm going to start making this kind of neat little hair thing that I did for this. Kind of give it a sense of flowing movement. And surprisingly enough, I really didn't think that this was going to last maybe even one wear. I've actually worn this on several occasions for several events. Nothing's happened to it yet, so fingers crossed. Seems to be okay. But that is a great way, one, to kind of hide things maybe you don't like, start getting some wire built up in here to kind of hide like the underneath side and so on. You know, just make things look a little prettier. And where to I want to start? It's always the question, isn't it? To start with wherever I can actually get this thing to go through. So I'm going to shape this wire pretty much the same way that I shaped a lot of this. Something else that I did when I didn't realize that my phone's battery had died, I took this part over here and just gave it a little twist. I ended up liking that look and a little better, and instead of it just coming out and around, it just feels a little bit more flowy that way. So that's not too terribly much different from what you previously saw. All right. So I'm going to come pretty much holding it down right in here. I'm coming around. I am getting pretty much hooked on the underside of this eyeball, and that's kind of the point of what I'm doing. I'm trying to build all that underneath there up. This is going to be quite unruly here. Then I'm going to follow around. I'm going to go underneath the black wire, the black wrapped copper wire. I don't want to pull it too tight because then it's going to want to pull it all out of where I just tried to lay it and shape it at. A little tug while holding it still. Come around. And it can come back up. Weave through. Since I brought this guy around and tacked him down pretty much, that's going to end up working out very, very well as far as, well, as long as you don't do something silly like go through the wrong thing. It's actually going to work out pretty good as far as holding this wire in place and keeping it relatively safe. And I'm going to put it underneath this hoop this time. Up and around, back through the black woven wire, and underneath. Whee! And I'm going to try to lay this more to the side of my other wires, so that way I'm slowly building up this wave that you can see here. I'm going to work on sewing this guy down here. Now I got that guy tacked down. Basically going to go across here, and just like nothing ever happened. And keep on going through the wrong spot, apparently. And now I'm going to just go ahead and end this. I'll wrap it around this wire, or the base wire here. Make sure everything lays nice and neat. I just about to say that's about as far as that's going to go. Nice and tucked away. So you can kind of come in and you can play around with these wires, kind of shape them a little bit if you're not totally happy, but there's not a lot of shaping you can do. You basically only maneuver with the slack you have. A great deal more firmly placed in there. I mean, he has a very small window in order to pop out of, and he's too big. He ain't gonna fit through that. So I'm not worried in the least. And I might do a few more things here and there, very super minor things. I'm probably gonna try to fill up under here a little bit more. And I'm thinking maybe I'll just take a short piece of 16 gauge and just bring it around, hide it, the end in here. And maybe I'll wrap it in black and then I'll anchor it to this black point here. And then I could like end it kind of almost underneath, but not quite. You can see there's some room to put something underneath there. So there we pretty much have it for this piece. Now, once you get completely done, it is going to be a good idea to get out your ring mandrel and just go ahead and reshape the ring and everything else around it. You'll be surprised if you feel something when you put the rings on, it just doesn't feel extremely comfortable. Once you've pretty much put it through the ring mandrel and kind of reshaped it again, you'd be surprised how much more comfortable you can end up with your piece. Now, the problem is with a thumb ring, I think I've already told you, but just in case I didn't mention it, I just thought it, be like, oh, I'll mention it at the end, and so on. Thing you're going to have to keep in mind with a thumb ring, if you're just going to do the end of it, yeah. You're going to have to wear it in a very particular way, in a very particular part of your finger. For me, that's going to be just a wee bit up higher on my knuckle, so that way it's got a good grip, but I get a lot less mobility. Having multiple sections also helps a great deal. And for me, it's putting it up higher. Now, actually, I put all the rings on a little bit ago. Show you guys as well. Can't rotate my thumb like that, but as you can see, we got our family going. Seeing all three of these guys together, I'm not that happy with this one. So what I'm thinking, and especially just with the rhythm, this finger piece, it's going to be between these two. It's going to be probably about this long overall. To where my pinky is there, you can see. Just a little bit longer than this guy, but quite a bit shorter than this guy. So you get the typical finger stair-stepping effect. But I'm thinking what I want to do is taking this part of this ring off and putting it on the thumb. And then I'll make a much more elaborate, longer piece for back that direction. And while it's not as big, or it won't be probably as big and elaborate as this guy, because once you start moving your fingers around, you don't want them to get tangled up. But it does need to be bigger to be comparable to this size. And you guys didn't see me make one this big, but trust me, it's the exact same thing as making this. It's just, you make the back part longer is all. And that's also part of why I have not done anything permanent as far as connecting everything together. Everything right now, it's just got some scrap wire wrapped around it for my hinges. That's all there is to it at the moment. Everything moves nicely, glides wonderfully. Now, I don't know if this is going to fit on this hand or on my thumb, but I'm sure I can reshape it and probably even cut out the ring that was made for this one. Ugh. Don't wanna. I could cut this one out and make a bigger one and reshape it overall, because the thumb, typically, it's going to be on its side, and that's part of the reason why I want to clean this up a little bit and make it look a little nicer overall, because it is going to be on its side. It's going to definitely need to be presentable from this point of view. Now, if it had ended up being on this side, I would still want to cover it up. But you could get away with it maybe a little bit, because even, like, oh yes, coffee please, or can I have your business card? Or, you're still going to end up seeing both sides no matter what you do. So always make it look nice from every angle, otherwise you will regret it. And we go ahead for the shits and giggles of it. Can I save any of this wire? Let's go ahead and take this all apart and see what happens. All right, so got these two wired together. Overall, they work smoothly together, which they ought to, because it's basically the same concept as these two, and they work just fine together. Just give it a little mobility here. And I'll just wrap this guy around one more time. That this is now on the thumb, this is all going to have to be lifted. Squeeze around here. Nope. You have to move further back. If I move these guys back downwards, which when I made it for this part of my finger, I moved and rotated these guys in an upward fashion because they were too long and they wouldn't connect up with the other piece that I had made. And it ended up working out great, and it gave me plenty of room to move still. And I'm discovering there might be a reason that people don't make thumb rings like this. Let's try that one more time. So it's trying to buckle in the middle. It's just too long for that part of my thumb. See if there's other things that we can do. There, that'll work. That's much better. I'd have to wrap this a whole lot better. The wrap is part of what's keeping it from having very much mobility. At least at this juncture. Video games. Just making sure I have full range. Especially with something like the thumb, you really don't want to mess up something like a thumb ring. Even though this is clearly something that's quite unusable just because of the long fingernail part of it, still, you want people to feel like, oh, I can go rifling through sheets of paper or some files and not be hindered, or, opening file cabinets, eating with a spoon. You want it to be as comfortable as an experience as possible and make people forget that they are wearing something like this. Just an everyday feature, and not because they wear something like this all the time, but because it's just so comfy to wear. But overall, actually, this might end up working and looking better with this piece overall than it did with this guy. It's fine if I have to make another one, whoop-de-doo. I feel like I'm a living wand when I wear this. Each finger's a wand. Everybody's super comfortable to wear. With the exception of this guy, and that's because of this wrap I got going. I need to work on it. But I think, other than this guy is going to misbehave, he's going to have the exact same issue that I had with my thumb ring, singular. Flip him around too much and he's going to go flying. It gives everybody everywhere automatic sexy fingers. And everybody wants sexy fingers. So I do hope you guys enjoyed this video here. Any videos related to this are going to, from this point onwards, it's going to be more of just silent video, seeing where the project is going, how it's ending, and I may stop on occasion to highlight a few things. This video, I didn't mean for it to be as in-depth as what it was, but there were some things I wanted to point out, and in a way, I'm kind of glad that the video for this one, yeah, the audio did get messed up, but now, by going back through, I can show you and tell you, okay, I did this, I don't really like it, so now I'm going to change it to this. And, well, this worked out great on this one, so I'm going to do it again. And it ended up being a prototype that actually worked out pretty well for that part of it all. Just see how crooked my middle finger is. It's never going to look right. Oh, well. So the next bits, this guy gets a ring. The pinky is going to get a claw all to itself. And as far as my surprise that I was hinting at in the beginning of this video, I'm still going to do it. And I'm going to do it to all of these guys, even though now this guy is clearly a lot more secure. I can flip him around as much as I want. He's not going no place because this guy is going to anchor him. Comes off pretty easy too. And and this is one of the things that's great about making rings that are resizable. I can take it off of this hand and maneuver things around until it works, but since this didn't end up being a solid ring all the way around, I can resize it and I can change things, which makes it great. I love it. So I do hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please like, comment, favorite, subscribe, hit the little dingy bell, whatever you guys want to do, and just keep on doing what you guys do ever so well. Thank you for coming and hanging out, and I hope you have a good one. Bye.